Morning, Rabbi.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Let me ask you to give me like 5 minutes, if it's okay. You can schmooze a little. I will be in 5 minutes, okay?
Okay. Who's here? Oh, hi. Morning,
Hi,
everybody.
Tina. Hi, Susan. Hi, Ted.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Good. I'm good. I'm trying to position this so that I can. What's doing?
Not too much. Getting ready for
Okay.
Passover.
Yeah. What are you doing?
I couldn't
I'm going to
unmute.
start changing cabinets today.
Oh, no. What? Oh, you changed cabinets?
I start taking all my food out and putting it in the basement or whatever, or getting rid of it.
I don't do
I
that
do it the
anymore.
opposite. I do the opposite. I do my basement and I keep everything down there in the kitchen down there
Oh, good.
and just bring it up to like, heat and to eat up here.
Very nice.
I don't change my cabinets anymore. I just put everything on a little table in my dining room. I have my old sukkah table. I put a tablecloth on there. I hide stuff underneath, on top, everything. And that's it. And I have a little carton where I keep other things and I don't take anything out. I can't.
I never
No,
take
I
anything
don't-
out of my cabinets.
I used
No,
to
if
take
it's-
the
If
silverware.
it's on a table in my
cabinet.
kitchen or in a,
It's too much.
yeah.
Are you
But-
having people over, Iris?
I'm just having my daughter and her family. That's it. There are 5 of us. That's it. Compared to what we used to have, it's really,
I
Very-
know. I know.
are
Yeah.
you doing it? Are you having?
I think I'm going to my daughter. That's the plan. When I questioned it with her, don't ask. I'm surprised you didn't hear it in your house. The argument like that.
I haven't put the subject up yet.
Uh,
I'm going to do one and Esther's going to do one. How about that?
Nice. That's good. That's
First
good.
time that she's going to do it. Yeah.
And where does she live?
Nice.
Where does she live, your daughter?
He's on Springfield Boulevard. It's not too
Oh,
far.
so she's right near you. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, years ago, when we became very observant, we wouldn't go anyplace. So I made both. So people came to me one night, other people came another night. And then Harvey's aunt said, if we're coming to you, you have to come to us. And I'm like, okay. So one night I would go to her and one night she would come to me. And that went on for many years. And then, let's see what happened. And then she passed it on to her daughter. So her daughter was doing it. Yeah, when she got to be 80, she says, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. You take over. So her daughter did it. Meanwhile, I've been doing it since I was 25. So
Yeah.
it's okay.
No, I stopped when my girls, had their own homes. They said it's stupid. You're one person coming to us as opposed to us, we have more room.
Yeah.
Silly. So that's what we do.
That's cool.
Yeah. But yeah, hopefully everything will be okay. I think my granddaughter's bringing a friend home, and and her mother-in-law, my son-in-law's mom.
Nice.
So it'll be nice.
That's good.
Just the 6 of us, quiet. Not as quiet as last year.
Oh, yeah. This year was quite quiet. Last year, I actually Zoomed. I Zoomed with Esther. I Zoomed with people in Texas and people in Ohio. It was very interesting. We had people all over the place and it was a nice Seder and everybody had made their own food and everybody talked about what they were eating.
Right. Yeah, I Zoomed the first night because, I started it beforehand. My daughter did it on her business account. So We left it going, and when it went off, and that's how my computer stayed. That's why I didn't bother with it. So.
Yeah.
So that's all.
Yeah.
What about you, Edna? What are you doing?
I'm actually going to my daughter in New Jersey.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
It's only gonna, because her and her husband will both have been vaccinated by then. My grandchildren aren't coming home. So, and I'm vaccinated, so it'll be the three of us. So, won't be a problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, my granddaughter and her friends will get, my kids got their shot, but my granddaughter will, and her friend will get tested. They're down in Maryland in school, and they have to get tested 2 or 3 times a week down there for school, because even though they're not in class, so kids are so stupid kids. You would think college kids. I think back, my granddaughter's 21. I was a mother already at that time, but they were supposed to open up classes after the February break or something like that. And one of the teams down there decided that they wanted to have a big party one night. So they went and they had the party. My granddaughter was not involved, but she said that there were 50 or 60 kids, young men and women, without masks for the most part, and 3 of them knowingly went having COVID.
Oh,
Stupid kids.
3 of the 3, and they've been kicked out of school
Good.
that's good.
and got a whole bunch of people sick. So after that, they said, that's it, we're closing. No.
Well, my grandchildren in Northeastern, they get tested 3 times a week. And one of mine has an apartment off campus. He has the same thing every 3 days. They get tested. It's wonderful.
Yeah. Where is she?
They were up in Northeast, and they actually got their first shots at the CVS up there last weekend. Because the school was supposed to do it, then Massachusetts pulled it away from them. And then my daughter was starting to see what she get in Jersey, and then she discovered that she could get something for them up there. So they're halfway there now, which is great.
Wonderful.
Nice.
If anyone knows someone who needs a shot, Samuel Field Y is giving out shots today to everybody.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
So
No, they did it Monday and Tuesday, and I posted,
if anybody needs something, they ought to call over there. And they don't seem to have an age requirement.
Really?
They're probably going to be a long line.
I
No?
don't know. I know you have to call, make an appointment.
I don't know. My kids all got shots from the extras at the end of the day.
Yeah. But I don't understand this new CDC guideline about not wearing masks when you're with people.
Oh.
Well, I mean,
Kind of scary.
I don't know, at what point is this vaccine going to be okay enough?
I don't know, but you read, I read the paper online every day. There's 50 to 60,000 people getting sick every day. So I
know, but I guess it's like, what if they gave you the statistics about the amount of people who are getting the flu every day? I mean, would you be as
I don't know.
The regular flu is down to like
Chances.
a single
No, I
digit
know,
number of people.
because
These CDC guidelines, basically, yeah, but these are just for people who've had both vaccinations, based on what I've read.
Yeah, but you can still be a carrier. You can, and you can.
That's right.
there's gotta be an end to this eventually. I mean, we can't continue like behaving like we're gonna be getting COVID for the rest of our lives.
No, but when you see 50 or 60,000 people a day getting sick,
That's
Not
what I'm
a
talking
year.
about. Not what they're talking about. They're talking about people, gatherings of maybe 10, 15 people. Small groups of people who've had both vaccinations and have been tested.
yeah.
we're going to start playing cards next week, but we're going to wear a mask while we're playing cards still, even though we've all been tested and everything,
Why
all
take
been
chances?
vaccinated.
Yeah, that's how I feel. Not to
David Weiss is here, and Edna is here, and Cheryl is here. The Zellmans is here. Tina Schnall is here. Susan Diamond
I'm here.
is here. And Iris is here.
But
And
not a
Nora.
diamond in the raw.
Nora, are you here? Nora is here. And Ted Lehman is here. What about Louis Kleiman? Is he there also or not?
Half and half.
Half and half. Okay. And Judy Samuels is here. And Aram is here too. Excellent. Okay. It's good seeing everybody. We have another interesting class today, which is not necessarily difficult and has some interesting things. So these are my favorites. Don't get spoiled, but let me also say, I think you received the email. I believe next week is the first yortzeit for my father. You received the email, and I'm going to do an askara here in his memory, which we will make it coincide to the Siyum for Pesachim. Cheryl and I and a couple more people are doing Daf Yomi, so we are going to finish Tractate Pesachim. And I'd like to invite you, either if you can come in person or just to connect remotely. Abby will be teaching, I hope, an interesting class on the Pesach Haggadah in memory of my father. And so anyway,
Okay.
it's already one year, which is
Unbelievable.
To
unbelievable.
believe.
Yeah. Unbelievable is correct. Okay, so we are at the bottom of page 104, and we are going to begin and finishing today, God willing, with that all the practices that involve necromancy, talking to the dead, divination, okay, all these different things that go all the way from talking to the dead to illusions with the eyes, and charming animals and snake charmers. We are going to see all that today. We will finish with that, and if we have more time, we will continue with the next subject. So let me ask, who can I ask? Let me ask Iris to begin reading. Okay, bottom of page 104. If it's not too difficult, we will continue reading, and we will do some background, some halakha, some notes, and all the above. Okay.
Okay. Abaye says, therefore, with regard to this.
No, the top. The sages taught.
The sages taught? Okay. The sages taught with regard to a charmer that the prohibition applies both to a gathering of large animals to one place and to a gathering of small animals to one place, and even to a gathering of snakes and scorpions. Abaye says, therefore, with regard to this person who through sorcery gathers a hornet and a scorpion to harm each other, he is nevertheless prohibited from doing so, even if he intends to prevent them from harming him.
Okay, let's look at the note. What is a charmer on the left?
Okay. The Rambam holds that a charmer merely utters spells and performs nonsensical acts while imagining that his spells and magic are effective. The Rambam rules that one who does so is liable only if he performed an act besides uttering spells, and he adds that one who uses the services of a charmer receives lashes for rebelliousness. Other authorities maintain that a charmer is capable of gathering animals together through his spells, and they hold that one is liable only after having done so.
So you need some results, okay? Let's look at the halakha, the bottom halakha with regard, Hover Hever.
With regard to one who uses spells to gather animals into one spot, if he performs any action in addition to uttering the spell, he is liable to receive lashes. If he only speaks without performing any action, he receives lashes by rabbinic law for rebelliousness. Even if he did so in order to prevent the animals from harming him, he is liable. But if the situation is life-threatening, it is permitted.
Okay, so the question here, the assumption is that some people know how to do such things, and that also that could be effective. Okay. Now we see that there is a difference between someone doing an action with their hands or touching the animals and something just using their voice or their mouth. So we are going to see twitching, you say, of their.
Yes.
So the Gemara is going to address this in the next part, okay? The Gemara asks.
And as for Rabbi Yochanan, who holds that according to the rabbis, one is liable for bowing to an idol, but not for blaspheming. What is different between these cases, leading to the conclusion that the bending of one's height while bowing is considered an action according to the rabbis, but a blasphemer's twisting of his lips to speak is not considered an action? Rava says the case of a blasphemer is different, since this transgression is in the heart as well. The sin of blasphemy does not apply to speech alone, as the blasphemer's intention is central to the transgression. If he spoke without intention, he is not considered a blasphemer. Consequently, one is not obligated to bring a sin offering for such an action, as it is essentially a sin of the heart.
Let's continue on page 105. Rabbi Zaira
raises an objection to Rava's answer, as it is stated in a Baraita, that one who unwittingly commits a transgression punishable by death is obligated to bring a sin offering, excluding conspiring witnesses who are not obligated to bring a sin offering, as their transgressions do not involve an action.
Okay, so we know we are going to learn a little about conspiring witnesses. This is something that always Sela reminds me is the first tractate that we studied 15 years ago, Tractate Makot. So let's learn about this idea of conspiring witnesses from the right, Iris, background.
Okay, conspiring witnesses. The halacha of conspiring witnesses appears in the Torah. If an unrighteous witness rises up against any man to bear perverted witness against him, and the judges shall inquire diligently, and if the witness is a false witness, then you shall do to him as he plotted to do to his brother. The specifics of this halacha are analyzed in great detail in Tractate Makot. The halacha is that not all witnesses whose testimony has been rejected, including proven liars, are considered conspiring witnesses. A pair of witnesses assume the status of conspiring witnesses only if another pair of witnesses testifies that the original pair could not have been in the place of their testimony at that particular time, because they were with the second pair at a different location. While the Sadducees understood these verses to mean that a conspiring witness is punished for causing bodily or monetary harm to another, the rabbinic tradition, based on a careful reading of the phrase, as he plotted to do, is that such witnesses are punished only if their plot was thwarted.
But here it seems, let's continue on where you went, Rabbi Zaira's objection.
Okay, Rabbi Zera asks, and why is a false witness testimony not considered a transgression that involves an action? Testimony is delivered through speech, which should be considered an action, as this is not a transgression that is committed in the heart. The witnesses are liable for what they said and not for their intention.
Okay, so that challenges a little to Rava that says it's about the intentions, okay? Rava says,
conspiring witnesses are different, since their transgression is committed through their voice. The essence of their transgression is not speech itself, but rather making themselves heard by the court. Therefore, since the projection of one's voice does not involve action, the transgression of conspiring witnesses is considered not to be involving action.
okay, let's continue more. They're going to analyze at the end what happened with the witnesses. The question is, why, if they give testimony, it's not an action, okay? Let's continue, but now they are going to analyze in the middle the question is, when is doing something with the voice or with twitching the lips considered an action? Okay, so Rabbi says,
Oh, I thought
sorry,
we were,
the Gemara asks.
asks, And is projecting one's voice not considered an action according to Rabbi Yochanan? But wasn't it stated that Amoraim engaged in a dispute concerning the following case? If one muzzled an animal by projecting his voice, by berating it whenever it tried to eat, has he transgressed the prohibition of you shall not muzzle an ox while it treads out the corn? And similarly, if one led different species to work together by projecting his voice without performing any action, has he transgressed the prohibition of you shall not plow with an ox and a donkey together? Rabbi Yochanan says he is liable, and Reish Lakish says he is exempt.
So here seems to be, let's continue to the end of the question. The Gemara explains
the reasoning behind their opinions. Rabbi Yochanan says he is liable, as he maintains that the twisting of one's mouth to speak is considered an action, whereas Reish Lakish says he is exempt because he holds that the twisting of one's mouth to speak is not considered an action. Evidently, Rabbi Yochanan holds that a transgression one commits by projecting his voice is considered to involve an action.
So you cannot say that Rabbi Yochanan says that is not an action, because we prove here that in these two particular cases is considered an action. I want to do two things. First, we are going to see how the Gemara resolves the problem of conspiring witnesses. So what is the problem there? And then we are going to see what are these two cases that the Rabbi Yochanan is referring to. So what's the answer? Rather Rabbi says,
there is a different answer to Rabbi Zera's objection.
You see that Rabbi Zera raised an objection on the top of the page. So that objection didn't go well, because we found out that Rabbi Yochanan considers that in the cases of the two animals is an action. So what will he say about the conspiring witnesses? Rather, Rabbi says,
conspiring witnesses are different since they are rendered liable mainly through sight. That is, the important part of their testimony is what they saw, which is not considered an action.
So that is the problem. It's not because the speech is not an action. The speech is an action, but the problem why they are not considered in this case liable is that they did not, the seeing itself is not considered an action. And the halacha again is unwittingly commits a transgression punishable by death is obligated to bring a sin offering, but the excluding conspiring witnesses, they don't need to bring a sin offering. Why? Because it did not involve an action, and the action here is not the speech, but they saw something. So that is not. And again, I need to visualize how is a conspiring witnesses that they do something unwittingly. So I cannot imagine. I can imagine some things being done unwittingly, but some things are different. I mean, are more difficult for me to imagine, but we are not going to do that right now. I want you to look at these two halachot about the animals, because these are two halachot that we don't encounter very often, but they are two mitzvot, two prohibitions in the Torah. So let's look at the two halachot, the top halachot, Iris.
Yes, muzzles an animal by projecting his voice. One who prevents an animal from eating while it works, even by merely berating it vocally, receives lashes, in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan, that speech is considered an action.
Excellent. So there is a prohibition. When an animal is working, you need to allow the animal to eat. You cannot muzzle the animal when the animal is working. Okay. Did you know this law, this halakha? Okay, so you cannot. When an animal is working, you can say, I want you to work and I don't want you to eat. You cannot do it. You make the animal suffering, because the animal is working and is plowing, and he sees the food that is there, and you don't allow the animal to eat when he sees all the food there. So the animal is suffering. I want to make something like a comment there, but let's first learn on to the next halakha.
Led different species by projecting his voice. If one performs labor with two species of animals, one of which is kosher while the other is non-kosher, whether he leads them together actively or verbally, he receives lashes, as the halakha is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan.
You cannot tie two animals to a yoke, you say, so they will plow together that have different strengths. And usually the example is shor and hamor, a bull and a donkey. Yes, and in this case is kosher and non-kosher. You cannot plow them together. I guess you also cannot do like a chicken and a bull, but usually the animals that they use were for work were donkey and
An ox, maybe?
oxes, sorry, no bull, oxes, and you cannot put them together. Now, what if you make them work together by saying, it's forbidden also. You cannot do it, okay? This involves an action. I tried to do it yesterday with Abby after I read this to see if she will do the dishes. But I didn't. I needed to explicitly tell her.
Rabbi,
Yes, Dina.
you said kosher and not kosher animals. Which is? I
For
don't know.
example, the ox is kosher.
Oh, it is?
Yes. The ox is kosher, yes. No?
Yeah, but you could have a donkey and a horse.
Yes, it's a good question. So I don't know the halachot of Muslim animals, so we need to learn a little more. Okay?
An ox and a bison.
Yes. So you are asking all good questions. I'm not going to I don't know the answers.
Well, I don't think it has anything to do with being kosher or not kosher. It has to be two different species. The one is stronger than the other.
From the halakha here, it seems that the kosher and non-kosher is an issue, but you know, what is the halakha here? Where is it?
I was always told it was
In Deuteronomy. So just bear with me. Let me see if I can find a little more. This is my book here. It's called the Tariag Mitzvot. It's a very helpful book. There's 613 mitzvot, all of them by number and by order in the Torah. So I'm just curious, what is the halakha? Deuteronomy 22. Yes. Don't go away. Let's see if it doesn't take too long, I'm going to give you an answer.
Check the public animal.
You shall not plow with an ox and a donkey together. It is forbidden to do any work with two different types of animals harnessed together. This prohibition applies even if they do not plow but merely pull a wagon. The Torah only prohibits working a kosher animal together with a non-kosher animal. However, the sages prohibited working with any two different types of animals, regardless of whether they are kosher or not. Since animals of different species suffer great discomfort when harnessed together under the common yoke, due to each animal's different habits, we are therefore forbidden to pair them together. Hence, the Torah teaches us consideration even for animals. How much greater then is the need to considerate towards our fellow man or woman, I will say. This book is very helpful. It's like a very, sometimes I have many books in my office. I don't know if you have seen. People ask me, do you use them, Rabbi, all the time? Have you read them? And I explain to them that I use my library to impress my congregants mainly. I haven't read them. But this is a book that I do read and I use it. It's very helpful, okay? So it's called Tariag Mitzvot by Rabbi Kogan, and very, very helpful. So according to the Torah itself is to kosher and non-kosher, but the halakha applies to different animals of different strengths, Stephen and everybody else. So thank you for making me look at that. Now we are going to continue very soon, and thank you, Iris.
You're welcome.
I want to talk about this idea of let me see if I get, okay, don't go. We are going to go a little more. 25:4, 25. You shall not muzzle the ox when he threshes out the corn. Lo tachsom shor betisho. It is forbidden to prevent or restrain a domestic animal from eating the produce over which he is working. One transgresses a mitzvah even by merely shouting at the animal in such a way that it refrains from eating due to the fear of its master. Okay? So this is what we learn. So I like to talk a little about that because the problem is the animal is working, and you know what is the problem? I'm going to give the animal food later on. Why can't I muzzle the animal to make him more effective? And the problem is that the animal suffers by seeing all this food available that he wants to eat, and he's working and he cannot eat it. It is cruel. So what I want to share with you, which is an insight, is that, just bear with me, okay? Because I want just to put my thoughts together. So let me tell you this scenario, okay? So, true scenario. In Santo Domingo, I was invited to a country club, and in Santo Domingo and in Dominican Republic, people who are middle class and higher, but especially higher class, wealthy, they have nannies. Everybody has a nanny. They come with the house basically, but everybody has a nanny, and all the children are always with nannies. The parents are not, you know, the parents talk among parents, and the children are all the time with the nanny. A lot to be told about that system, okay? But so I went to the country club, to this club that they was inviting me by the beach. Beautiful, beautiful outside of Santo Domingo. I did a wedding, and so I was invited, and there is a sign by the pool, you know, nannies are not allowed in the pool, okay? Even with the children, okay? So nannies are not allowed in the pool. You know, if the parent says, take little Johnny to the pool, no, you cannot. They don't want the nannies in the pool. The pool is for, I won't say for white people, but this is basically is for non-nannies, only for members, okay? Now, if you have, let's say, a carnival, and you are having like a little child who is working there and is in the same age of playing the games, or let's say an employee brings one of the children because could not go to work, could not go to school, okay, and is in the day of the carnival, you cannot have that child looking at the carnival and not allowing the child to enjoy what he sees. It is cruel, it is wrong. You are not obligated to bring all the poor children of the world and bring them to a carnival. But once it's there, once the person experiences what the other are experiencing and is enjoying what the other people are enjoying, and you are about the same age to enjoy what other people are enjoying, it's wrong not to do it. And we have this as an intuition, you know, when we are serving food, like let's say a Shabbat dinner, you know, we will say to the people who work, to Maxi, to Vivian, to Orlando, please help yourself. Yes, this is it is not only to be a mensch, but it is, you know, you see, you are helping us to eat all this food. You are helping us by serving us. You should be allowed, you know, to have the food that you are serving. I'm not saying you need to be allowed to drive in my Mercedes, but you should be allowed the food that you yourself are serving us. So this is the common sense, you know, it is cruel to ask a person to do something for you, and the person is producing that for you and not allow the person to enjoy it. Okay, so again, this is something that by living in a place like Dominican Republic, I'm coming from a place, different place from Argentina, like Argentina, I was able to see, we have someone in the community that she told us, that didn't give the maid the same food that they eat. I'm not going to let her eat this expensive food. She can eat her food. So this again is a different, we were just, wow. I mean, this is, so anyway, I'm mentioning this because this, I think, is what the Torah is saying, that if Hashem tells us to be mindful of how animals are suffering, imagine human beings, how more mindful we need to be. Okay, so anyway, this is for my insight here. Yes, David.
Okay. Yeah, this kind of brings me back to something we read a few minutes ago about not muzzling an animal so that it can eat. And you just made a connection between animals and human beings. And I'm wondering, can you muzzle a working person who is hungry in the same way you cannot muzzle an animal who is working? For example, I
don't think you can muzzle a working person to begin, even if it's not hungry. You cannot.
So in other words, if you have an apple orchard and you have people picking your fruit, if they want to stop and eat an apple, that's okay.
Not only that, the Torah says specifically, David, that the people who work in agricultural things, they can eat as much as they want. It's a specific mitzvah. It's one of the 613 mitzvot. They cannot put the apples in their basket and take them home.
Right.
But they can eat. As long as they work, they can eat. And they can eat as much as they want. The Torah brings a case of a person that was eating more than what he was producing. And according to the Torah law, you cannot stop him. But the rabbis make him a recommendation that he shouldn't do that because he's going to get fired eventually, or they may not hire him again. That's the point, okay? But even in that case, if a person is working with the most expensive fruit, he can eat that expensive fruit. Yes, Iris.
When you go to pick fruit from an orchard or like blueberry bushes, you're allowed to eat as much as you want while you're picking. You only have to pay for what you bring to them.
Yes. Okay, that was a nice, in my opinion, nice segue. So the reason I'm saying is I take advantage of this point is that many times we do not see some significance in many of the things that we read, but here I think that there is something. Okay. We are going to continue. Okay. Now we are going to go to different types of sorcerers and so on. Anybody volunteers to read? Judy, you volunteer. Thank you.
Yes, okay.
The sage is taught.
The sage is taught. A necromancer is one who causes the voice of the dead to be heard, speaking from between his joints or from his armpit. A sorcerer, Vivioni, is one who places a bone of an animal called a yadua in his mouth, and the bone speaks on its own.
According to Maimonides at the bottom, this yadua is a bird. So you take this bone and you put him in your mouth, and the boy. When you go to the casino, play number 28. Yes, or you put it under the armpit and it makes noises. Okay, you can imagine it's a lot of fun. These things are forbidden. Okay, let's continue. Page 106.
The Gemara raises an objection from the verse, and your voice shall be as a ghost out of the ground. Isaiah. What does the dead person not speak from the grave on his own? The Gemara answers, no, this is not so, as the dead person rises by sorcery and sits between the joints of the necromancer and speaks.
The dead person doesn't speak from the grave, but the person comes, okay, and speaks. Okay, let's continue. Now it's getting more interesting, okay?
The Gemara suggests, coming here a proof from the statement of the necromancer to King Saul.
We learned the story about the witch of Endor. Remember that we talked about that? This is in the book of Samuel, chapter 28, and the end of the first book of Samuel. And King Saul goes to a witch that a necromancer is that makes Samuel appear. Okay.
And the woman said to Saul, I see a godlike being coming up out of the earth. Samuel, what does the verse not mean to say that the dead person spoke on his own? The Gemara refutes this proof. No, this is not so, as the dead person sits between the joints of the necromancer and speaks.
Okay, so don't think that he was from the grave, but they bring the spirit from here and the person speaks from the armpit. Okay, if you haven't seen the movie Ghost, we talk about that. We encourage you to watch it. Okay, now comes interesting. Let's continue, Julie.
The sages taught the category of a necromancer includes both one who raises the dead with his zechor, which is a form of sorcery, and one who inquires about the future from a skull. Golet.
Look at the top of the note. Top note. What is the zachur from the word zachar, which is male? Yes, top note.
One who raises the dead with his zachor. Rashi interprets zachor as a penis. Tosafot explained that the necromancer King Saul visited was female, so this activity is clearly not limited to men. They therefore interpret zachor as referring to a form of sorcery. Some explain that a necromancer raises the dead using his genitals, whether male or female, thereby refuting the explanation of Tosafot. Other explanations are that a necromancer raises the dead using the genitals of the one requesting his services, or that the dead person is not entirely raised out of the ground, but only until his genitals are exposed.
Okay, so you not only you get to know the future, but you get a lot of fun if you go to a necromancer. Okay, let's continue a little more.
Inquiries from a skull?
No, yes, you can do it. Yes, yes.
Gulgolet. Some explain the word Gulgolet as derived from the Galgal sphere. The necromancer looks into a ball made of stone or glass.
So in Hebrew, Gulgolet means skull, but it could be Galgal, like the crystal ball, like So it could be like something like that. Okay. Let's now go back to the Gemara.
Is the Gemara suggests?
No, what is the difference? The third paragraph, 4 line.
Wait a minute. The sages taught, no?
Yes, you can do it. Yes, go from
No.
there.
The sages taught the category of a necromancer includes both one who raises the dead with didn't I do that one?
Yes, just do it again.
Oh, one who raises the dead with his zachor, which is a form of sorcery, and one who inquires about the future from a skull, the Gulgolet. What is the difference between the type of necromancer and that type of necromancer? When one raises the dead with his zachor, the dead does not rise in its usual manner, but appears upside down, and it does not rise on Shabbat. By contrast, when one inquires about the future from a skull, the dead rises in its usual manner, and it rises even on Shabbat. The Gemara asks, with regard to the wording of the last statement, rises, where does it rise? Isn't the skull lying before him? Rather say as follows, the dead answers in its usual manner, and it answers even on Shabbat. With regard
now we are going to have 2 paragraphs of a particular story, okay?
With regard to the statement that the dead do not rise on Shabbat, the Gemara relates, the wicked Turnus Rufus.
Look at the bottom, look at the language bottom, Turnus Rufus at the bottom of the page on the left, Turnus Rufus.
Oh, Taurus Rufus. Taurus is derived from the Greek
Uranus.
Tyrannus, meaning tyrant. Apparently, the true name of the Roman governor was Tinellus Rufus, but he was derisively called Tyrannus due to his tyrannical reign. The conduct of this governor may have been one of the factors that led to or hastened the revolt of Bar Kokhba.
Okay. So let's continue now with regard to the wicked Turnus Rufus. Go ahead.
Okay, with regard to the statement that the dead do not rise on Shabbat, the Gemara relates the wicked Turnus Rufus, the Roman governor of Judea, asked this question of Rabbi Akiva as well. Turnus Rufus said to him, "And what makes this day Shabbat different from other days?" Rabbi Akiva said to him, "And what makes this man," referring to his interlocutor, "more distinguished than other men?" Turnus Rufus said to him, "I am more distinguished because my master, the emperor, wants it that way." Rabbi Akiva said to him, "Shabbat too is unique because my master wants it that way, as he has sanctified that day."
Very nice answer. Turnus Rufus was the bad emperor, the bad governor, and maybe these conversations happened when Rabbi Akiva was in jail waiting for execution, okay, or even before. We don't know. Okay, let's continue.
Turnus Rufus said to him, "This is what I mean to say to you. Who is to say that now is Shabbat? Perhaps a different day of the week is Shabbat." Rabbi Akiva said to him, "The Shabbaton River can prove that today is Shabbat, as it is calm only on Shabbat. A necromancer can also prove this, as the dead do not rise on Shabbat. The grave of his father," referring to Turnus Rufus's father, "can also prove this, as it does not emit smoke on Shabbat, although smoke rises from it all week, as during the week he is being punished in Gehenna." Turnus Rufus said to him, "You have demeaned my father, you have publicly shamed me, and you have cursed him by saying that he is being punished by Gehenna."
Okay, so a little about, we learned that in Shabbat, the Sabbation River, which is a river that okay, look at the bottom, the Sabbation. There are many legends about the Sabbation River. Some people call it the Sambation, but look at the bottom in language.
The source of this word is Sabbation, the Greek equivalent of the name Shabbatai, meaning of the Sabbath. The Shabbation River is mentioned frequently in the Midrash and in folk tales. It is mentioned by Josephus and by Pliny, with the former claiming that, that there is such a spring in the Lebanon mountains. Since it is mentioned in several sources that the 10 lost tribes reside beyond the Sabbation, some have identified it as one of the rivers of the Caucasus Mountains or in Afghanistan.
But actually it's a mythical river that his waters are raging and you cannot cross them. The only day that the waters are calm are on Shabbat. But you cannot go on Shabbat because it's Shabbat. So you can never reach this lost 10 tribes. So this is a mythical river, and there are stories when the people will say he lives behind the Sambation, he lives in, okay? But
Well,
Rabbi Akiva is telling, is telling Turnus Rufus that Shabbat is special, not because I say so, but because on Shabbat the Sambation is
calm.
The necromancer cannot do not rise the death on Shabbat. And also he says to Turnus Rufus, your father's grave doesn't emit smoke on Shabbat. Your father is being buried in Gehenna 6 days a week, but on Shabbat the Gehenna takes a little rest. Okay, so this was the way of Rabbi Akiva putting down Turnus Rufus. Turnus Rufus took revenge by killing Rabbi Akiva. Apparently you should not upset Turnus Rufus. But yes, go ahead. This is a good place to stop. Adam.
I just want to remark that I think this question is very, very smart. And I think it kind of reflects a debate between the Greek and that culture and the Jewish culture. Because the Greeks are saying, okay, the 7 days a week, why does Shabbat fall on a particular day? It could fall on the next day or the previous day. So I think it's a very good question. Now, we can tell stories about the Sambatyon, about, all kinds of other things. But if you think historically, the Shabbat, I think, is not, if you can say the Shabbat, when the world was born, created, the Shabbat was already there, and that's it. There was no dispute about it. But I think practically, the Shabbat at some point became the 7th day, and they did decide on a certain day, and then once they decided it, that became the custom. Maybe in Jerusalem, the Shabbat was one day, and in Haifa, the Shabbat was another day, and eventually they settled it to be a particular day.
So, it looks, Aram, like you went to the JTS, Aram. This answer.
Okay, so this is what I'm saying. I think it's a good question. Okay. Yeah. Now, if you as a Jew, you can say, look, I don't know what the sources are, but this is our custom, and the Shabbat.
Aram, let me rephrase it. Aram is saying, is the Shabbat a 7-day convention? So we say this is Shabbat, and it's already in the calendar, but could have been any other day, or is something intrinsically holy about the Shabbat, regardless of any convention? So Rabbi Akiva says there is something intrinsically holy about the Shabbat. Is something in the Shabbat that the nature is different. Aram is saying, maybe not. I like to say something to help Aram a little, so we can say, which is a lovely thing that the rabbis like to say, you are right and I am right and you are right. So the truth is that Shabbat is a particular day, and we know when Shabbat is. But the rabbis ask, what if someone is in the middle of the desert and loses track when is Shabbat? What does a person do? How does a person observe Shabbat? They ask the question, yes? You know what is the answer? Let's say you don't know. You are in the middle of the Sahara Desert, or you are taken captive. Yes, what is the answer, David?
I would think the answer is that since he had the intention of honoring Shabbat, that would be sufficient under these circumstances.
So which day does he observe Shabbat or not?
Well, he means to observe Shabbat, but he's not able to since he doesn't know what day it is.
That's a good try, David, but it's not the answer. It's not the logic answer. You know what the answer is? Yes, David. Yes, Stephen.
I think he arbitrarily chooses a day.
What? So he says, I'm going to observe Shabbat today, I'm going to observe tomorrow. No.
7 days later.
Yes, that's the answer. The answer is he counts 6 days, and the next one is Shabbat. He counts 6 days, and the next one is Shabbat. That's the way he does it. And when he goes back to civilization, he will find out which day is Shabbat. But he still needs to observe Shabbat in the way Aram is mentioning.
So if you're in the Arctic Circle during the winter, when you have 24 hours of darkness.
That's a good question. I don't remember what is the answer, but I'm going to ask you, Steve, to do a little research.
Thank you.
How is Shabbat in the Arctic Circle? It is, I think it's still 24 hours. But the question is, it has many, Shabbat is still 24 hours. Only you have 2 hours of light and 22 of darkness. But the rabbis ask the question, what happened with candle lighting, what happened with Sukkah, what happened with Shacharit? They say that, you know the story about this guy who goes to the first frum astronaut that goes to the 3 people who go to Mars. So they say, how did you? No, not yeah. So they say, what is so? The Christian says, so I was able to experience God. The Catholic says, the universe, the grace of the universe. And Iris, the Jew says, he was terrible, putting on the film, taking off the film, putting on the film, taking off the film, putting. So anyway, what?
Let me go back to the book here. They went into a long dissertation about these things. Now, apparently, either they observe these or they believe these things happen.
Say that again, Steve.
They went into a long dissertation about sorcery and necromancy.
Yes.
So apparently, it's either they observed it happening, or it actually did happen, or they just go into a fantasy.
I think this is something that really happened. That people have this practice.
Like, it's a practice, a con, or is a practice a reality?
Okay, so from the context here, Steve, what Steve is asking, I will translate into English, is
Thank you.
is this working or not? Or is just like we, all of us here, we don't believe that you can charm, maybe you believe that you can charm animals using your voice. The rabbis believe that you can really charm scorpions, or bees, and snakes, and there are people who have the ability to do so. And there are people who have the ability to bring people, again, depends who you ask. Maimonides is more, I would say, hesitant, more, what is the word I'm thinking, more?
Reluctant.
Practical?
No, the one who doesn't believe, more skeptical. Maimonides is more skeptical. Maimonides says, all these things that the Torah is mentioning, they are forbidden, but the people are charlatans and nobody can do such a thing. But other rabbis believe that, yes, they can do it. It's still forbidden, but there are people who have the ability to do so. Okay, and that's why people, we are going to see, because very soon is going to come consulting for the future. People want to know, can I do this? There is a great, let me beat this dead horse one more time. The rabbis have this debate, and not in this tractate, maybe we'll see later on, I don't know if it's here or not. Can a person cure someone using the name of Jesus? The Talmud brings it. Of course, the Christians didn't like that part of the Talmud, and they burned the Talmud, but it is in the Talmud. And a rabbi apparently, actually is in this tractate. It's in Avodah Zarah. That's why I learned it. It's in this tractate. I just learned it a few weeks ago, that a rabbi heard something good, or a good insight from Jesus, or can you call, so you could, some people could say nothing that comes from this man is possible or works, and some others says, it could work, but it is forbidden. It can work, and they ask the question. The Talmud brings the story about someone who asked a rabbi, can I cure this person using the name of Jesus? And the rabbi said, no, you cannot. And the person died. The sick person died. And the rabbi praised that person. The person died, but you did not use the name of Jesus. So the question is not necessarily about efficacy, you say? Is it about efficacy, or is it about, the prohibition? So there are two different opinions here, but the prohibition stands. The prohibition is the prohibition. The question is, does it work? Can someone prevent the future? We are going to see, because people were very interested. And this is the next page and a half. So we are going to see that today the people were very interested in making predictions. Is this a good day to start a journey? Is this a good month to plow and to sow, or is not? Is this a good day to marry? We are going to see that very soon, so just bear with me, but this is a question I'm going to ask. Yes, David.
Yeah, you mentioned that the Christians burned the Talmud. Do you know approximately what year this happened and what led up to it?
Yes, what led us, they were very mean, and which year we are going to find out very soon. It's called there. It happened many times, but the main one was in France, I think.
Oh.
And I would say was 700 years ago. Burning of the Talmud at Notre Dame. It happened on June 17, 1242. Okay.
Almost 900 years, 800 years.
24 wagons piled with volumes of the Talmud. Okay.
Thank you.
Rabbi,
Yes.
did they have people then who claimed to not speak to the dead, but get messages from the dead?
Sure. And the question is, can you go to these people and inquire? Yes. And the person who does it is condemned to stoning. The Jew, yes, I think it's referring to a Jewish person, but the person who consults is condemned, receive lashes. People have, everybody wants to know the future. I mean, not every, I don't want to know, I'm afraid, but Some people want to know. Let's look at a little more. Okay. Yes,
Do we get the story of Saul?
Yes. So the story. Yes. So Saul was the first one who condemned all these people, and then he went to look for the answer. Yes, it's forbidden.
Okay, can I tell a story about my family?
Sure.
Okay, two of my aunts were going to get married on the same day. And the night before the wedding, one of my aunts found out that the man she was going to marry was already married. So she ran away. She packed her bag and just ran away. And they didn't know where she went. And my mother and her mother decided to go to a fortune teller or whatever. And they found the address. And they lived in Massachusetts. And they gave the address of where she was. And my mother and my grandmother went to New York and found her. And she was like, who told you? She couldn't believe that they found her. And I mean, it's such an incredible story. I mean, but
is it? Yes, it is.
And she didn't come home with them. And she actually got married and lived in New York at that time. And then she moved to California. And she married somebody who wasn't Jewish. He converted. And my grandfather, who was very frum, wouldn't accept him. And that was the end of that pretty much. But my mother was in touch with her until she died.
Wow.
But they weren't sisters then, they were cousins?
They were sisters.
Well, two sisters are not allowed to get married on the same day.
Really? Is that true?
They're supposed to have their own day, yes.
Yeah. But certainly, but in addition, they are not being allowed to marry to another married man. That's another.
No.
Yeah. But Sela, you are right. Yes.
Thank
Not
you.
only, not only, yes.
This practice, the rabbis consider to be a valid but banned practice.
Yes, it's forbidden by the Torah.
But they're thinking that it's real though.
So what I'm saying is there are some people who yes, first of all, that it happened. Yes, there are people who do it. The question is, does it work or not? Depends who you ask. If you ask Iris will tell you it works. The question is, can you still go? And the answer is you cannot, even if it works. And again, I will tell you something. If you ask people like my wife or like Iris or like me, we are more believing that these things work, I guess, or that could work. That some people have a particular gift for some things, okay? Some people believe that they know that this is something irrational and nobody has the gift. Like the same, do people can take away your evil eye? Does the evil eye, such a thing as the evil eye, exist? I believe it does. But and this is something that actually can be is kosher to do, okay? But if you ask Maimonides, he will say, no, man, that's crazy, that's nonsense, that's stupidity, okay? So it depends who you ask, okay? Let's go a little more and learn about black cats and other things, okay?
Iris, did your mother ever go back to get any other information from that person?
She actually did. And she went with a friend and they told her that she would marry somebody with the initials MK, which she actually did. She would live in a state other than the one she was born in. So she moved from Massachusetts to New York. So that was true.
Oh, wow.
She would have 5 children. Well, she only had me biologically, but she had 4 foster children. And she also would live in a house with a white fence in front, which she did at one point.
Wow.
Iris, come on. Now you are going to tell us that your mother won the lottery?
I'll tell you what happened. She actually won the lottery, but she didn't play that week. She didn't play that week. Can you believe it?
Yeah, I heard that before with somebody else.
I will tell you something, guys. I knew the story.
Played the same numbers all the time.
Tina, I won't tell you something, Tina.
No, let me tell you.
And Judy and David, not that I need to encourage you to join the shul, but if you join the shul, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. Okay.
Okay, so let me tell you, she played every week. And then this one day, she said to my father, can you please drive me to the place? Because I'm too tired to walk. And he was like, oh, I'm so tired. I don't want to go out. So the next day she walks into the candy store and the man says to her, you won. And she says, I didn't play. He goes, oh. I mean, he knew her numbers. She played the same numbers every week.
Rabbi, is
Yeah.
this person still alive?
Yes.
Rabbi, you said the people knew, or whoever, that the seventh day was Shabbat.
No, they calculate. They say they made, as Aram was suggested, they made like an arbitrary decision. They say today is the first day, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. They didn't know, but you still need to count and observe that your 7th day as if it were a Shabbat.
Now, in some languages, and I'm not so proficient, of course, in Spanish, but does the B and the V ever get twisted in any way, in any words or whatever?
What?
The B and the V in Spanish.
Yes.
Does
What's
it
the
ever
question?
get, mixed? Sometimes people say a V instead of a B, or
Yes.
you don't know.
Yes, I do, because I say that. Yes, that's in Argentina.
It does happen.
And the H is silent. So we say, that's why it's very difficult for, yes.
Okay, so the seventh day would be Sheva, yeah? So
No, it's Shabbat. Shabbat is called.
no, seventh day of creation.
Shvi'i.
Of creation.
Yeah.
So could they have made a mistake was in Hebrew too, because the two, the above, the
Yes,
above and
that-
the above are very close.
Yeah, so that's a good question. I think it has to do with Hebrew grammar, and it's not a mistake. It's the word Shvi'i or Sheva could be different as Shabbat. So
Yeah.
it's called the 7th day, but the 7th day is called Shabbat. But it has nothing to do with Spanish, Sela, although in Spanish we made a mistake with the V and the B. Okay.
Right.
So this is an interesting thing but this is maybe in Argentina mostly. Okay. Okay. We have still more things to do, and let me see if I can ask. Ted, do you want to read? You want to read, Ted?
Okay.
Ted Lima, you want to read?
Yeah.
Okay.
The
you hear me
Gemara
now?
asks. Yes.
The Gemara answers, or the Gemara asks, okay.
Yes.
Isn't one who inquires about the future from a necromancer the same as what is described in the verse, or directs inquiries to the dead? Why are they mentioned separately in the verse? The Gemara answers, one who directs inquiries to the dead employs a different method to contact the dead, as it is taught in a Baraita, or directs inquiries to the dead. This is one who starves himself and goes and sleeps overnight in a graveyard, so that a spirit of impurity should settle upon him, and he can listen to what the dead are saying. And when Rabbi Akiva would arrive at this verse, he would weep and say, if one who starves himself so that a spirit of impurity will settle upon him succeeds in doing so, and a spirit of impurity settles upon him, all the more so one who starves himself so that a spirit of purity will settle upon him should be successful, and a spirit of purity should settle upon him.
Rabbi Akiva says, if this work, imagine you can do it also with the spirit of purity. But let's do.
But what can I do, as our iniquities have caused us not to merit the spirit of sanctity and purity, as it is stated, but your iniquities have separated between you and your God, and your sins have hid his face from you, that he will not hear. From
Okay,
Isaiah.
so we learn here that there is, look at the halakha, the top halakha, Ted, if you can read for once.
Or directs inquiries to the dead. One who starves himself and sleeps overnight in a graveyard, so that the dead will come to him in a dream and reply to his inquiry, or one who performs other actions so that the dead will reveal themselves to him receives lashes.
Okay, this practice, you are not condemned to death, but is forbidden to go to the cemetery, you starve yourself. I will tell you, if you starve yourself and you go to the cemetery at night, you may hear many things. So, again, but this is forbidden. And now the Torah is going to address an interesting verse, but your iniquities have separated between you and your God. In Hebrew is Avonoteichem ayu mavdilin beineichem lebein Elohechem, says Isaiah. And Rabbi is going to explain this literally, and let's see what he says. Ted, please continue.
Yeah. Rava says, if the righteous wish to do so, they can create a world, as it is stated, but your iniquities have separated between you and your God. In other words, there is no distinction between God and a righteous person who has no sins. And just as God created the world, so can the righteous.
This is going to be a cool thing. So get ready, because we're going to find the source of something that all of us know, and but you don't know that it's from here. And Rava says a righteous person has the ability to create worlds, to create, actually, to do things, yes, to create human beings, to create animals. And the only thing that separates normal people from God is the sins. Your sins, usually we say your sins have separated, means that we are distant, but here it means they understand separate, this is the difference. But a righteous person who is without sins, in theory, has the ability to create worlds. And so let's hear two examples. Indeed,
Rava created a man, a golem, using forces of sanctity. Rava sent his creation before Rabbi Zaira. Rabbi Zaira would speak to him, but he would not reply. Rabbi Zaira said to him, you were created by one of the members of the group, one of the sages. Return to your dust. The Gemara relates another fact.
This is the source of the famous golem, the golem of the Maral of Prague. How can the golem, how can a person create? Can create by mutations of letters or by particulars. So this is the Gemara is already appears that Rabbi created the man. He sent the man to Rabbi Zaira, and Rabbi Zaira talked to him, but the man did not reply. And Rabbi Zaira says, return to dust. So he make it return to dust. Okay, let's continue the Gemara.
The Gemara relates another fact substantiating the statement that the righteous would create a world if they so desired. Rav Hanina and Rav Oshaya would sit every Shabbat Eve and engage in the study of Sefer Yetzirah, and a third-born calf, Igla Tilta, would be created for them, and they would eat it in honor of Shabbat.
And here the Sefer Yetzirah is a Kabbalistic book that, according to the tradition, was written by Abraham Avinu, by our forefather Abraham, and they were using permutations and created a calf. And a good one, which is a 3, I think is what's called a choice calf, and they ate it. So they have free lunch every Shabbat or free whatever it is. So again, I tried to do it, but didn't work. So I needed to go to A to Z. But if you want to save some money, you can give it a try. Okay, let's continue a little more. Okay, Ted. The sages taught.
The sages taught. What is the definition of the soothsayer mentioned in the verse? There shall not be found among you a soothsayer. Rabbi Shimon says, this is one who applies 7 times of semen to one's eye in order to perform sorcery.
This is the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. Yes, okay.
And the rabbis say, this is one who deserves the eyes.
Deceives the eyes.
As though he is performing sorcery. Rabbi Akiva says, this is the one who calculates the fortune of times and hours and says, for example, today is a propitious day for going away on a journey. Tomorrow is propitious for purchasing property successfully. Or he says that on the eve of the sabbatical years, the wheat harvest is generally good. Uprooting legumes rather than cutting them from above the ground prevents them from going bad.
He says, on this particular time, I see that you should plant legumes. On this particular time, you should uproot them. I see that you should. Okay, so this is according to the different opinions. Rabbi Shimon is the one who applies 7 types of semen. That is something that I am not going to try. But the other two, is the rabbis means the one who deceives the eyes. So this is something very interesting because this is the source. Can you do magic tricks? This is called Achizat Einayim. So let's look at the halacha, the second and third halacha, Ted.
Soothsayer, one who determines what times are auspicious for specific activities by means of astrology, and the like is deemed a soothsayer. Anyone who practices the rites of a soothsayer or who regulates his behavior according to the predictions of a soothsayer receives lashes. This is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. The fact that the Rambam does not rule in accordance with the majority opinion of the rabbis is explained by the suggestion that Rabbi Akiva does not disagree with the rabbis, but merely adds to their definition. It is further suggested that it is the rabbis who agree with the definition of Rabbi Akiva, and they merely add to it.
Okay, let's see the next one.
Okay.
One who deceives the eyes.
One who deceives the eyes. It is prohibited for one to perform tricks that make it appear as though he is performing sorcery. There is a contradiction between different statements of the Rambam as to whether one who does so is liable to receive lashes or is exempt. One resolution is that he is exempt from receiving lashes or performing sorcery, if that is the prohibition with regard to which he was forewarned, but he is liable to receive lashes as a soothsayer in accordance with the opinion of the rabbis here. Others differentiate between one who acts as a soothsayer, who is liable, and one who acts as a sorcerer, who is exempt. Another explanation is that one who performs tricks without pretending to actually be doing something supernatural is exempt.
Okay, and that is, I'm curious about if anybody would like to find out a little about magic and Judaism and halacha. Okay, if anybody, you would like to do it, Sela?
No, I was.
No, please, Sela, please.
No. I was going to ask you a question because Moses dropped his staff and it turned into a snake.
Yes, so that is not sorcery because it's Moses.
Right. Okay. Well, what about a prophet?
So prophets are prophets. The question is, the prophets get the power from Hashem because they are prophets.
How do they prove it?
It's a good question. You are asking an excellent question. And the rabbi says the only thing that proves that they are right is not the trick, but if there are prophecies coming up. Rambam talks about that. And Steve, you made me work a little, if you remember a few years ago, of false and true prophets. You remember that, Steve?
Yes, and we never came to a real good answer.
No? Okay, you can still work on that, Steve. But I think the Rambam says that the only thing that proves is if the sign that he says is coming, if what he says is going to happen, happens. Okay?
Yeah, but some of these prophecies, like the destruction of the temple, took place years later.
Yeah.
So
but,
the answer we had is that it has to come from a well-respected person.
Yes, that's also, the person is ready to be proven, says Maimonides, as a person as a reputable person, a righteous person. And in addition, that means a person who is not reputable can never be a prophet. But a person who has all the right conditions, which is the moral conditions, the Jewish conditions, all that could be a prophet if. Okay, so this is the bottom line. But let's talk, I mean, if anybody would like to take upon yourself to examine a little about magic and halacha. Well, we're talking about tricks, magic tricks, okay?
Well, magic tricks, it says here, as long as he doesn't claim that it's supernatural, it's legitimate.
It's exempt. Exempt means it's exempt from punishment, but is it permitted? You can be exempt but forbidden.
Well, somebody does card tricks or
For example, card tricks,
rabbit in a hat.
card tricks, or brings like a little, you know, like a, or levitation, or, excuse me, one second. Okay. Rabbi Zelikovich, who made Aliyah, is calling me from Israel. Okay, let's go a little more. We are almost there. And I'm going to ask Tel to finish reading.
The sages taught the enchanter mentioned in the verse is one who relies on superstitious signs. For example, one who says, if one's bread fell from his mouth, that is a bad sign for him. Or if one's staff fell from his hand, it is a bad sign. Or if one's son calls him from behind, it is a sign that he should return from his journey. Or if a raven calls to him, or if a deer blocks him on the way, or if a snake is to his right, or if a fox is to his left, all of these are bad signs. An enchanter is one who relies on these as bad signs and consequently changes his course of action.
Let's continue next page. We're almost there.
The term is also referring to one who says to a collector of charity, do not collect from me first, as that is a bad sign for me, or do not collect from me now because it is morning and it is a bad sign to begin the day with a loss, or do not collect from me now because it is the new moon and is a bad sign to begin the month with a loss, or it is the conclusion of Shabbat and I do not want to begin the week with a loss.
Okay, just do the next one and then I'm going to come back to that. Please, the sages taught.
The sages taught that the verse, nor shall you practice divination, was soothsaying, is referring, for example, to those who divine and receive guidance according to what happens to a weasel, to birds, or to fish.
Okay, which is practice of divination. I want to talk about a particular one, which is that the top on the page, do not collect from me first or in the morning or after Shabbat, because I don't want to begin the week or the day with a loss. So I don't know if you know this thing, but it's very important among some people. I will say people in Jerusalem, people in the Shuk. I don't want to say. I need to be very careful what I'm going to say because I need to be politically correct. But let me. There are some people, especially merchants, for whom it's very important to make the first sale of the day, if you know what I mean. That the first person who comes to their store, they will be able to sell it. So they will say, I need to sell because you are the first person in the first person, and it's a sign. If I sell to you, it's a good sign for the day. If not, it's going to be a bad sign. So I think we do it all the time without going to a necromancer, is to maybe to say that some things are auspicious and some things are not. That's what a necromancer does. And they say, if I go and a black cat crosses, I'm going to go back home. Or if I go under the ladder, I should need to go back 3 times. Or if okay, so this is what the Gemara is saying. And this is forbidden because Hashem is in charge of the world and you should not take this as a sign. But if you are taking them, one thing is to believe them. The other thing is to go to a necromancer so he will tell you. Yes, Cheryl.
And the other thing is to write pages upon pages about demons and how many cups you may drink before your demon will get you, and not to walk between trees, between palm trees, etc. And although the sages are telling us we should not look at these signs and believe in these signs. They very much do.
Yes, you cannot go to a necromancer, but they give you this advice. They give you this advice. And you know what, Cheryl? Do a little homework. Find out why is this not okay, and what Masechet Pesachim is telling us is okay. Okay.
Rabbi?
What is the difference? I just want I want to say that here says on the Halacha, it is prohibited to practice divination as the Gentiles do and rely on various signs as to what happened to a weasel, to bears, or to stars. You cannot do it as a sign. Cheryl is going to find out if the rabbis have any good excuse there. Yes, Sela.
What about in Shachar? If somebody gives the money, there's somebody first who gives the money.
Yes, no, so this is not a problem at all. The question is, again, can you,
That's charity.
no, but yes. First of all, I don't believe that makes any difference. So I believe that here they're saying is wrong. When you say, do not collect from me first, you need to collect from someone first. Yes?
Right.
Okay, but people believe in these things. Not me, Sela. You can give Shacharit first.
Me too.
Yes, Cheryl.
And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, because when you decide, and I see this all the time, I play these word games with lots of people, including some people on this in this class. And if I believe I'm going to win, I do much, much better in a game than in a game where I say, I'm playing against, whomever it may be. I'm going to lose. And, it's likely to happen.
And again, the good question is there any logic or any science to some of these things, So maybe, Cheryl, to help you a little, not that I am going to convince you, maybe in the minds of the sages it was some science, and they believe that here is all arbitrary, or not. But, because you are right, they look very familiar, they're very similar one to the other. I want to thank Ted and everybody who read for reading. Put the date here so we know when we are coming back. And I think that most of the fun is over. We are going to get some interesting stuff, not very difficult, but not necessarily so fun as bringing the death out of the grave by using the penises. So these are the things that you want to teach high schoolers in yeshiva, that they will have a lot of fun when they are in 9th grade. I want to give, yes.
Okay, when somebody hears good news, I don't do it. They say knock on wood. That would be prohibited, correct?
It is certainly, because it's the good of the cross of Jesus.
Oh.
Yes.
See, I learned something.
And the tying a red ribbon on around a baby or on the baby's carriage to ward off the evil eye. And, there are tons
so I would like to say that not, again, this is me, maybe an Iris and somebody, not all of them are on the same boat, on the same category. So knock on wood, it is the same one, but from the Christian side, I think the same as crossing the fingers has to do with the cross.
Rabbi, if you go to Kevarachel, they give you the red, this red around.
Yes. What about the red string? I will let you find a little about that. Let me see if I can show you this book, which is one of my favorites. I always recommend it here. Worker of Wonders. I don't know if you read it. You read it, Cheryl, I think?
Yes.
Okay, these are all the rabbis and all the people who did miracles and wonders, okay? And let's look at the Babylonian Talmud. It's called Babylonian Lawyers, Magicians, okay? And they are the rabbis, the same rabbis that appear here. Rabbi Zeira is one of them, okay? So these are good stuff. Okay, I'm going to go. I wish you well. And we continue to learn more Gemara next week, okay?
Have a good week, everybody.
Be well, everybody.
Good, safe week.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.